Welcome to the Daily Shift. Every day, a shift is happening in the heavens, in the nations, in your own life. Our work here is simple: to hear what the Spirit is saying and to shift with it. I'm Bernard. Last time we asked where marriage came from. Today, I want to ask a harder question. Why? Not why did you get married? Why did God make marriage at all? If you ask most people that question, you'll get one answer: love, companionship, somebody to do life with. And that's true, but it's not even close to the whole truth. Scripture gives us at least 5 distinct reasons God built this institution. And if you only know one of them, you're running on a fraction of what marriage was actually designed to carry. By the end of today, you're going to see your own marriage differently, or you're going to look at marriage differently, because you're going to see what it was actually built to do. The first purpose for marriage was companionship, solving aloneness, the aloneness that God saw in Adam. We touched this in the last episode, but it deserves its own weight here. Genesis 2:18, this is what it says: "It's not good that the man should be alone." Before sin ever entered the world, God had already named something not good. Not evil, not sinful, just incomplete. Marriage is not God's first answer to human aloneness, given in a perfect world before anything had gone wrong. That tells you something. Companionship is not a luxury add-on to marriage. It is one of its founding purposes. The second purpose is procreation and dominion. In Genesis 1:22, it says that be fruitful and multiply and have dominion. Marriage is the God-given context for bringing image bearers into the world and for stewarding creation together as a team, not as two individuals running parallel lives under one roof, as a team jointly responsible for what God has put in their hands, whether that's children, land, work, or ministry. The third purpose we're going to look at is a living picture of the gospel. Now, here's the one most teaching skips, and it's the deepest one on this list. Ephesians chapter 5, from verse 22 through 32, Paul takes the one flesh union from Genesis 2:24 and says it is a profound mystery that refers to Christ and the church. Let that land. Your marriage is not just a personal arrangement between you and your spouse. It is a functioning parable. Every day you stay faithful to your covenant, you are preaching whether you know it or not, the relationship between Christ and his bride. And this is exactly why unfaithfulness in marriage is never treated in Scripture as a private matter between two consenting adults. When a marriage breaks covenant, it doesn't just change two people. It distorts the message that marriage was built to carry to a watching world. The fourth purpose is restraint against sexual immorality. 1 Corinthians 7:2, this is what it says: "Because of the temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife." Paul is blunt here. Marriage is a legitimate, God-given context for sexual expression, and it protects believers from immorality. This is not the highest or the most romantic reason on the list, but Scripture doesn't shy away from naming it. God built marriage, in part, as a guardrail. The fifth purpose is mutual sanctification. Let's turn to Ephesians 5:25-27. Christ loved the church that he might sanctify her. That's what the Scripture says, sanctify her. Marriage lived rightly becomes a furnace. It shapes character. It exposes your impatience, your selfishness, your pride, and it gives you daily opportunity to put those things to death and grow in their place. If you ever wondered why marriage sometimes feels harder than expected, this is part of the answer. It's not malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what God built it to do. Here's what I want you to sit with. Culture has taken this fivefold purpose and shrunk it to one: romantic fulfillment. Are you happy? Do you still feel the spark? Are your needs being met? And when the answer is no, culture tells you the marriage has failed at its purpose. But if marriage was only ever about romantic fulfillment, none of what we just read would be in scripture. God would not have needed to mention companionship, procreation, the gospel picture, restraint from immorality, and sanctification. One purpose would have been enough to write about. He gave 5 on purpose. So when your marriage stops feeling romantic for a season, and every marriage has that season, you're not necessarily in a failed marriage. You may simply be in the sanctification purpose right now instead of the companionship purpose. The romance was never the whole assignment. It was one piece of a much bigger one. So here's your question for this week. Which of these 5 purposes is your marriage currently living in? And which ones have you neglected entirely? Maybe you've built a marriage that is great at companionship, but has never once asked what it's preaching to the people watching you. Maybe you've raised children together but never treated the marriage itself as a place where God is shaping your character. Go back through these 5: companionship, procreation, dominion, the gospel picture, restraint from immorality, mutual sanctification, and be honest about where you're strong and where you've been coasting. In the next episode, we go somewhere almost nobody teaches on directly. How do you actually know scripturally whether a marriage is valid before God? Not legally, but spiritually. We'll look at what the scripture requires, and we'll go deeper into discerning whether marriage was truly God's will in the first place. Until then, go and be what your marriage was built to be. May the mercies of God be upon us.